Spoiler warning. The following discussion will contain spoilers. We recommend checking out the movie first, then coming back to hang with us. But if you don't care about that, glad to have you here. Alright, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin.
And I'm John.
And we are your real movie guys. It's March. It's not going to be one thing. Real March Madness. It's a tale as old as time, Pixar Versus Disney, and a brawl to end it all, we have selected 8 films from each studio, and a total of 16 movies will battle it head-to-head for superiority. On today's episode, we'll be taking a look at Disney's Beauty and the Beast. A prince cursed to spend his days as a hideous monster sets out to regain his humanity by earning a young woman's love. John, I've noticed something with Disney, especially I think during the golden age of Disney, is I think they perfected the idea of, now hear me out here, right? Taking an ancient tale, modernizing it, and making everyone forget the original ever existed.
Definitely.
What do I mean by that, right? Like, Kevin, where are you going with this? When you hear the story of Beauty and the Beast, what do you think of the first thing that comes to your mind? You think of this movie. When you hear Snow White, what's the first thing you think of? The animated movie. Little Mermaid. You forget it's a Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale. Like, no one knows that. I should say, not that no one knows it, no one cares. Disney has taken these stories and given them a new identity to the point where they're accepted as the actual story.
Like, it's also even funnier, too. Like, you could probably see people who would go read, like, the story that this was based off.
Right.
They'd go read this, and they go, no. That's not how it happened. That's just not how it works. Like,
no.
They would think that came before that, you know what I'm saying?
It just so bewilders me sometimes, and it's not a bad thing, because I think I do it too. For example, like, Cinderella is probably one of the most famous. Cinderella is a really dark story. It's a grim fairy tale. People forget that, where they cut off her toe to get her foot to fit in the glass slipper, and her sisters are terrible to her. No one remembers any of that. Disney is so popular and so amazing at what they did during, like, this string of golden age Disney films that you forget what they're based on and accept these as the reality, and that these are the only ones that exist. And anyone that did it before, or anyone that does it after, when you see other attempts, looking at you Disney live action remakes, these are the films that people compare it to, whether it's a cheesy spin-off or an adaptation, quote unquote, of, a different retelling of the story. No matter what you do, you're going to remember this movie. Beauty and the Beast is a phenomenal film. I was telling John, we were talking about, like, doing reviews and stuff like that. It becomes hard, and you're going to hear me say a lot of things I've said 1,000 times at this point, but they're all facts about Disney films. A lot of these things are just sheer facts. And not that Pixar doesn't have them, but Disney just has such a high quality of film, especially during this period. And I'm not just talking from a nostalgia sense, I'm talking from a technical and film sense. This movie broke the boundary for what would be considered Best Picture. This movie was nominated for Best Picture when there wasn't an animated category. That's insane. That would never happen today. Again, that comes to the conversation, why does this movie stand the test of time? And I think a lot of it just has to do with, again, the presentation, from the music, the character work. Everything in this movie is just so tightly crafted and entrancing. From the minute this movie kicks off, you're shown the backstory of what happened to the Beast. And normally I'd be like, well, that kind of sucks. We're just given like a brief summary and then we're thrown right into the story. But the way it's crafted, through a stained glass window, you're shown how the prince rejected the witch and she ended up casting a curse on him because he was so mean and vile to her. You're shown this through that presentation, that majesty. This movie really nails that. And I think that theme, that motif, carries out through this whole movie.
Not even just how amazingly it looks and everything, but each and every individual character adds so much to this movie, and there's so many great characters in this movie. It's so hard to pick like a favorite character in this movie, because they're all so good.
Right, so going into the characters, we'll start off with our main protagonist here, the beautiful Belle. She's absolutely perfect. I think she's my favorite Disney princess. I think she's a perfect balance of what we look for in what should be a Disney princess. She's smart, she's independent, she's strong. Maybe there's a conversation of falling in love with your captor. Not saying that's a thing, but hey, it's out there. But no, Belle epitomizes, I think, what a lot of people look to her as femininity at its highest degree, where she's, again, strong, independent. I love how she can read and no one else really can read or anything like that. All the men are kind of doofy and stupid, but she's so smart and normal. While she thinks she's the outcast, it's actually everybody else that's kind of out of date and out of touch with the world. Gaston's a really great villain. You can say he's not really in the movie that much, though, as you would think a villain's really in it, because even when rewatching it, a couple times and just even recently, he's really only in it a little bit in the beginning, like a droplet in the middle, and then the end. Right, and that's really all we get of Gaston. But every time he has an appearance, you remember it. That's a good villain, where he's barely in the movie, but every time he was there, I could tell you every scene Gaston was in, because he steals the show, especially with the Gaston song is probably one of the highlights of the movie.
That is one villain that I've always enjoyed, and just the way he is, and the character that he is, and though, like you're saying, he's in very little bit of it, but he still captures so much of that role.
Right, and it brings out a great irony, especially with the Beast's character. The Beast, as you know, he's dark, he's scary, he's this monstrosity. Deep down, pretty nice guy. He's pretty chill. Gaston, beautiful, stunning, strong, has all these amazing qualities. He's a scumbag deep down and he's terrible. He's a horrible human being. It goes to the whole theme. Don't judge a book by its cover, as cliche as it sounds. But it's true in this movie. You get this Beast character where you slowly see him just overcoming a dark nature. He's hideous. He's gross on the outside. He's this monstrosity. As a kid, I always thought he was pretty cool, but that's just me. I thought he was a pretty cool character. That being said, he has to overcome this dark design to let his nature and find his humanity again, to capture reclaiming humanity. He's able to do that. Gaston isn't able to do that. That's why he falls to his death at the end of the movie. I think there's some really great parallels there, especially for this being just a kid's movie. There's a lot of really great storytelling going on with the characterization.
You could see also the way that the characters work well together, like with Gaston and LeFou, how they work very well, like they're a team, but they're completely like different people and opposites.
Yeah,
but they
he's a
were
little lackey.
Yeah, and like Gaston's strong and he's kind of like a wimpy little dude. But then you can also see it when we finally get to like the Beast's castle. And you have like the interaction, Mrs. Potts and Chip and Clocksworth and Lumiere and Belle. You could see like just the way that they all communicate, and I feel like they each play off each other's role in such a way that helps this movie so much.
Right, the chemistry works so well in this movie, and it hinges a lot on these side characters, especially to be enjoyable to children and not make this tone too dark, because this movie's dark. There's a lot of dark stuff going on. When you have these characters like Lumiere and Cogsworth, Mrs. Potts, they feel like they've known each other their whole lives. You really get that feeling, like the conversation between them is so organic and natural, especially Lumiere and Cogsworth's banter back between each other. One of the highlights of the movie for me. They really do a great job making those characters fun, relatable, and a little sympathetic as you feel bad for their plight. They care about the Beast as much as he's a jerk throughout this whole movie and he's literally a monster on the outside. They know that someone they care about and they know is on the inside. And they're like his own little personal cheering squad. They want him to succeed, not just for them, but for himself. And you always feel that throughout this whole movie, which I think that's complimenting a lot of characters. Their motives aren't as much selfish as it is about family. And what complements the characters on top of that is the artistry. This movie's gorgeously bright and gorgeously dark. A lot of the scenes too, especially when we see the West Wing, which is one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
The castle is your home now, so you can go anywhere you like, except the West Wing.
What's in the West?
It's forbidden!
What does Belle do? She goes into the West Wing. She goes over there. We see it's all torn up, destroyed. It's the Beast chamber where he keeps his room. He has a picture of himself like ripped apart with slashes going through it. But when she puts her hand on it, you see like the light kind of flicker on his face to show that there is still some life maybe left in this character. And then they have the rose, which is absolutely beautiful. And I think that's a great plot device to add a bit of suspense, especially just watching the petals slowly drop with the brilliantly colored lighting, this way it hits the glass. I think they did a really good with the choices they made in the design. And that carries throughout the film. One another underestimated scenes, I think, too, is also the mirror. Beast gives Belle a hand mirror where she can look and see where her father is, and later Gaston steals it from her and says,
"Show me the Beast!"
It's got these violent, like, green colors, like, oozing almost out of the mirror as he's whipping it around. It's like, it feels evil and grotesque. He takes this beautiful object and turns it into something evil almost as a means of destroying the Beast. Again, playing off that whole thing. These things that are so beautiful are so deadly at the same time.
Adding on to with all that to include it. We get to one of the things that this movie is definitely known for also, with the amazing soundtrack and music that goes along with this. It starts off when Belle's just going through the town and she's singing, and that song, not only are the words important to the story and stuff, but the way it's sung and the way it's just done so well, like, it's not one of those things where how we have some movies nowadays where you see singings kind of thrown into them. They don't really play a part, they're just thrown in there. This doesn't have that.
That's what Disney's always done best. They've always been able to tell a story using the music to enhance the story, incorporating it literally into the lifeblood of what makes this tick. The song Belle is a masterpiece in crafting. Like you said, we introduces all these quirks of the town. It shows how tight and confined. What a lot of people don't give this song credit for, I think, is the use of space. I feel that the town's really tight. Everything's small and quaint, and yeah, it's happy, but you can tell Belle is longing for something more. And then when she goes into the reprise of the song Belle, she goes out into the giant landscape and she's like, I wish for a world of beauty, and she's singing at the top of her lungs, longing for something more. You sincerely feel the depth and the expanse of what she's looking for in that horizon. This is one of the first Disney movies where I felt a sense of scale. I think everything just feels grand and over the top. The castle itself, even though it's dark and moody, you feel like this grand sense of mystery and wonder. And then we get to the Be Our Guest song, sung by the wonderful Lumiere. We get to see the magic in this castle. It really feels like an enchanted castle.
Also, like, it adds to the ambience of, like, the singing with how they do certain lighting effects, I feel like. If you notice, always in the Beast Castle, it's always, like, never very, very bright, except for in, like, the ballroom. That's very bright and airy and everything.
Well, you know why, right? You know why that is? The lighting and the color reflects the mood of the film. If you notice, and it starts off dark when we're in the Beast Castle, right? Everything's dark. Slowly but surely, we start to see color kind of glow and enter the world. Up until, like you said, when we get to that ballroom, towards the end of the movie, everything's bright. It's the brightest it could possibly be. Everything's shining and beautiful. He has this bright blue suit on, and her dress is bright gold. Everything's so romanticized and absolutely beautiful. Then she leaves. She says she has to go back, and she leaves him. What happens to the castle? Everything's dark. The rain comes in. Everything's pouring down. Yeah, it's for dramatic feel. Of course you want to have a big, awesome lightning storm confrontation with the villain at the end, but it's not just that. It's adding to the atmosphere. The colors reflecting what's happening in the world. And once he transforms back into the prince, I kind of like it. People have mocked it. I think Shrek's the most famous movie that had mocked, like, the transformation scene with Fiona to the ogre. It's kind of silly when you look at it. You got laser beams shooting out of him. It's a little weird. I mean, maybe that's the only part that didn't age the best, but you see the light shine through the storm, essentially, until the rain clears, and then he's back to being the prince, and the world's bright and happy again. I really like the comparison that they're doing using that color and lighting technique. One of the songs I think we have to talk about, well, all the songs in their own right are good. I love the Gaston song. It's the perfect villain theme. That's not what I really want to dive into, though. The song I really want to talk about is the song that won Best Song, Beauty and the Beast. That song incorporates, I think, everything you were looking for in this movie. It tells the story about the two finally meeting almost as equals for the first time on equal footing. It just has such a romance, a glamour to it. Like you said, the amazing setting, everything just really works in this song. Which brings me to maybe the one point that I would really maybe have in this movie is, in some ways, I feel like that scene doesn't hold up, because that's the part of the movie where they decided to use a little bit of CG. I think this is the part where Disney started to say, let's use some kind of like CGI setting. Let's experiment with it a little. We saw it in movies like Aladdin, stuff like that. We see like other implementations. Fortunately, even though this scene is the most memorable and the most beautiful, I think sometimes it just doesn't hold up as well. They try to add a layer of depth by having them dance around and move around. And it's tough to say, was it easier to do it that way? Maybe in some ways, to actually add a sense of feel to the movie. But part of me really just wishes they hand drew that scene, because I think it would stand the test of time just a little bit more, in my opinion. So I think we're at that point, though. We're going to give our final scores. I'm going to give Disney's Beauty and the Beast an A+.
Crazy old Maurice, Crazy old Maurice.
Phenomenal film. Changed film history as we know it. This movie is amazing. It does everything that you would look for in a classic Disney film or a classic animated film that many have tried to replicate and just can't. At the top of the review, I spoke about how this replaced anyone's knowledge of Beauty and the Beast. And it's true, no matter what's come after it, and even the ones that have become before it, it's always going to be compared to this movie. That's how strong a bond and hold this movie has on our society. I love Beauty and the Beast. I think it might be up there as one of my favorite Disney movies. The tale as old as time, and they prove why. This movie's phenomenal. John, where do you stand with this film?
I stand with this film as an A+. Absolutely, at least top 5 Disney movie of all time, with an amazing soundtrack and just everything throughout the whole movie. There's not one time where I'm like, when is this going to be over? How long has this movie been? It's such a great movie, and no matter how many times you watch it, you still love the story, you love the music, and you just love the characters.
It's, again, the pinnacle of animation with Disney. It's part of the golden series, I would say, of Disney films where they can almost do no wrong. And, Pixar's got some tough competition. I loved WALL-E, but when it comes to Beauty and the Beast versus WALL-E, we'll have to see what happens. John, where can the people find us at home?
You can find us over on YouTube, The Real Movie Guys over on YouTube. Like our channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can also follow us and other things that we do over on Twitter, at The Real Movie Guy on Twitter. You could also follow us now on Instagram. You can let us know your opinions over there. Follow all the things that we have coming out and that we've been doing. And you can also listen to us on many podcasting platforms, such as...
Yes, for your listening pleasure, we are also available in podcast form at iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Overcast, Breaker, Radio Public, and Pocket Casts. Be sure to give us a listen at any of those fine places. If you already are right now, hey, greatly appreciate it. Just search Real Movie Guys. We should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us for this episode of The Real Review. My name's Kevin. That guy over there, he's John. We are your Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. The battle rages on as Real March Madness Disney vs. Pixar continues. We will catch you next time.
See ya!